research on co-ops and doing research with co-ops. So that was one key thing.
If you do talking, I'll do the writing. Yeah, that's probably easier.
Yeah, so it was building up. So I think Ed, someone mentioned that Ed said in his talk about one of the main things is to keep contact with Co-ops UK, so that people like us who are in this room and other academics. Someone else mentioned the Cooperative College, which used to be based in Loughborough. I'm not sure if it still is.
In Manchester.
Manchester now, yeah. So they had a directory of, I don't know if it's just academics, but definitely a directory of researchers and academics working on co-ops. That's been revived apparently, so that could be a good resource for finding out. Because there was some of us said at the table that there was a surprise of finding these other academics, perhaps in the same city or even the same institution, working on things that we should be talking to each other about. Yeah, so a second kind of broad thing was trying to bring co-ops into universities, so involve co-ops in teaching and research. So Marisol mentioned AldGen, which is very keen on trying to get the kind of services they provide and telling people how to start co-ops into university career services. So that'll be one way of actually bringing co-ops directly into the kind of institution of universities. Also through teaching, so where possible, having people from co-ops coming to speak and give lectures and be involved in kind of teaching to students. Let's see what else. There's also in terms of research, it was trying to find ways of doing research that's useful to co-ops. So the example from the research I'm doing is kind of trying to co-produce research to collaborate directly with a network of co-ops. But the issue there is that it's hard to get the funding that would allow you to actually pay for co-op members' time, because it's fair enough getting money for travel costs, for subsistence, things like that. But the time issue is the big one, so it needs to find ways of finding pots of money that would allow us to actually pay co-ops for collaborative research. So to help in terms of income for the co-ops, but also help in terms of hopefully collaborative research that is useful to those co-ops, because it's produced with them. It's not research on the co-ops, research with them. So another thing we could do to try and create a kind of directory of funding pots that would allow that. So funding pots that allow paying partner staff costs. They are there, it's just trying to find out where they are. A last thing we mentioned was, we're not sure how it kind of fits. We'll start talking about different models of capital investment in co-ops, so how co-ops actually get the capital they need, either when they're starting off or expanding or for whatever. So I'm not sure how that was related to what we can do, but I guess maybe for people in business schools it could be kind of developing these kind of models, bring that into teaching, that kind of thing. Does that kind of cover what we talked about? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
I knew you'd be the right person to speak.
Okay. Shall we take this table next? Who was the spokes?
We're going to wing it.
Are you nicely up for me?
I can do, yes.
Well, I think it's going to be a mixture of us all speaking actually, because
we're a cooperative.
Script. Yes.
Total horizontal.
Smoke, that's what
We felt
Constrained by
it all comes back to that education and development from being young. So learning cooperative values when you're very young. So some of Dorothy's experiences, and all of us would have experienced that as you're growing up. And I might be a cooperator, but I do believe it is within us to cooperate in whichever sense that may be. And it's then, once you've done that, it's the exposure. How do we then tell everybody about it, isn't it? It's how do we promote that, which is what you were saying. But through personal stories like Dorothy's, aspirational stories, people that live and breathe in co-ops, because the academics is great and it's lovely to hear, and I love to hear the other side of the academics. It makes me fight cooperation even more. So you know, we need not to be complacent about that. But we believe, like you've asked, that people in co-ops come and talk to universities and understand that in a wider sense. And basically co-ops are real businesses doing real things, and I can work this way. So, you know, I think we need, from the co-op sector, we need to promote the cooperation in a more exciting way. So yes, perhaps every business has done things in the past that is not a great success story, but we're still on that conveyor belt as a model. We're still, you know, trying to promote the way that we do things. So let's see. So that was most of our. We spoke about lots of different things. Did you want to add a bit more?
Yeah,
as
there was
well?
one more, because we did a note taking together. We talked about having like a cooperative audit. So there was one question that sprung up, like, how cooperative are you? So if that kind of question can be passed out to people to get them thinking about it.
That's maybe in the workplace. How democratic is the workplace? How cooperative is it? We question whether universities were icons of democratic.
I'm really surprised you asked that question.
But the other, I mean, if I can, is it all right me doing this? The other counterpoint is, I think Hart and Negri talks about indignation being actually, so there's commonality in being really pissed off with what's going on. And the expression of allows people to identify, express themselves and identify with others. So indignation as a counterpoint to cooperation.
Did you want to add in as well? Because I'm sure there was other bits you've got.
I'd just like to amplify something around the first statement about early education and socialisation. Dorothy used the phrase to encourage dissent. To encourage dissent. Now I want to take it back to, I think it was about 1636 when Galileo said, hang on, the sun doesn't go around the earth goes around the sun. Now for people to accept that must have been a huge shock when that suddenly that received wisdom backed up by authority was questioned. And when we ask people to think about cooperative management and cooperative organisational processes, we're asking people to make that sort of shift away from a capitalism which tells us there's no alternative, it's pie in the sky, anger, dissent, indignation, unnecessary things. If we wool it up and turn it into people knitting their own cars, it won't work. We have to realise this is a robust business model that satisfies human need, and it's that simple.
Another little case study was public health. So an example of two paired villages, one a mining village that was in a bad way, another one that did quite well. But self-organisation, the one that did well was actually the National Union of Mine Workers. So the old branch of the pit organised the village and turned it into an enterprise, a cooperative enterprise centre. But the product of that, the measurable thing from the NHS was that the people in that village were a lot healthier, the others were in a really bad way. So it may be public health. And there was some research, I think, in that 97 that showed that developing self-organisation was a really potent health cure or whatever. Not a cure. What is it?
I suppose the alternatives have to be visible.
Yeah.
So if you look at something like Mondragon, you look at there's Beurtzorg or something in Holland, which has in 6 years gone from employing 6 people to having 80% of the market in healthcare in Holland. Look at Mondragon, look at the videos of a very well organised, normal business.
Okay. Anything else on that one? Okay, that works quite well then. I'll somebody else want to?
Can we describe?
So actually we started where you ended with the public health question actually, and one of the things, particularly with Dave's work on well-being, looking at perhaps policy interventions around promoting and articulating some of the positive benefits of cooperation in terms of job satisfaction, engagement, task variety, a whole load of different things, actually quite well established organisational behaviour ideas, but sort of articulating those somehow and pointing to some clear benefits. We also picked up something that other people have already talked about, which was around the idea of the student ambition. I guess we hadn't started quite as early years, because pretty much everybody on the table was involved somehow in universities, so we were thinking of, you know, that 18 to 26-ish and older groups that are the people we're mostly dealing with. And one of the problems was, how do we actually we talked about disabusing students of the blue chip boss complex, which I think is a nice kind of way of putting it. This idea that they might actually go on to run IBM or something like this, you know, that's the kind of the imaginary. And actually the career service is crucial in that. So it's nice that other groups pick that one up, because I think that as much as we might in our teaching give counterexamples, if when they go to the career service everything is structured around getting a job in a top graduate recruiter and all of that kind of stuff, that's setting those ambitions, often setting students up to fail, actually is, you know, it's going to give them this kind of false class consciousness, which, you know, is only going to lead to cynicism and anger, but probably not the kind of productive indignation that will lead to dissent, but rather a kind of a passive depressive kind of model. So we also thought, as you said before, about normalising cooperatives, just writing about them in our case studies, teaching about them, and the examples. I mean, we all know them, but not just as an addendum in lecture 10 when everybody's already gone home for the break. Oh, and there are also, but actually working through that and writing up some of the case studies. And I think that's something where cooperators and academics can really easily collaborate. And the networks that we've already started to put together today, you know, if Bob wanted to work, or Francis wanted to work with some of us to write up a case study of your organisations, we can do that. Marisol's fantastic resource of video cases that are already online, and students love that because they're short. They are within the kind of millennial time frame of attention span and stuff. Sorry, that's patronising. Old people can say that, but anyway, I think those kinds of resources and developing those just to normalise that, so that we're breaking down those ideas where all of the cases of the big corporates would be really helpful. We also thought that we should perhaps also think a little bit about setting up our own cooperatives. Actually, the current government, there are opportunities that are opening up because of the way that they're opening university, the right to award degrees. That's getting a lot less protected. It is opening up quite a bit in the coming years, and it might be a possibility for us to start actually putting together interesting cooperatives and working with some of these models. I would love to see a cooperative with a flat pay structure, for example, and not have to carry a vice-chancellor and his chauffeur and his big house on £350,000, and just see what would happen if we spread that around a little bit. And actually business and social sciences might be a really good starting point, because there's pretty much mostly variable costs. We don't have many fixed costs other than classrooms, and even those can be rented very flexibly. So it's just academic time mostly. And we could probably come up with some much more interesting models that might also involve, we talked about opening students to being, because the cooperatives have to be open, and they should be open, and the students might actually be able to participate in their own education in a genuine sense, not just in a kind of end-of-term tick box on the NSS, did you hate your lecturer, did they dress well? No, you know, this kind of feedback that we tend to get. You always get great feedback, Mark.
Yeah,
my shirt's aren't bright. So that was the thing, and then we also thought about, and we didn't really get anywhere with this, but how do we build political coalitions? Because at some point, kind of constituting a movement is the way in which this will develop, by creating a social movement. Was there anything that I missed on that one? Okay.
Am I allowed to add
Yes.
Lincoln University? Their
involved in that.
lecturers, have you heard that? They've set up their own cooperative delivering a degree type thing, but people don't have to pay the fee as they do currently. So again, looking at something a bit differently. I think it's going to be hard. The only problem who they had was it was hard for business to recognise a different structure of education than a degree. So that was their sort of barrier, but perhaps some good practice from there.
In conventional funding at Lincoln, they found a loophole in funding using the Sharia compliant funding, which is more co-op friendly because the government has had to reorganise student funding to be Sharia compliant, and they discovered that this actually enables a more cooperative structure if you use that, because they can't say it's only for Muslims. You know, it has to be open to anybody to use that. They've also got a cooperative university research project on the go at the moment, trying to work out what a cooperative university would be. They're doing some, it's very early days, and the social science centre that they've been running for several years, which is, you know, co-learning, and also thinking about these MOOCs, these massive online courses, with some, the working co-op weekends. This guy, I said, what do you do? And he goes, open badges. What's an open badge? It's a peer accredited online accreditation for doing a MOOC. So you do you do your economics degree, Harvard economics course, and you get an open badge, which is peer accredited online. You can't falsify it. So your employer says, well, you didn't get a Harvard degree, but you've done the course, and you've got this thing. There's some fascinating stuff going on.
Edinburgh have done one as well. They've started in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That is either accredited or not. You pay for it if it's accredited. Otherwise it's free.
Yeah.
But that would be more general, I think, not just these MOOCs, but learning resources that are available to like people outside of university.
Yeah.
Which opens up into the industries, because I mean publications is a big deal, you know, and we do have some open access publications that are on either as cooperatives or as kind of just open collectives, but if you look at the conventional academic publishers, it's price gouging.
Yes.
UCU had a project that they called the Public University, which was examining structures and stuff about 2 or 3 years ago. I thought it was quite exciting.
Okay, well, I think there's some really interesting ideas there. I think what we'll do at the end of that, I mean, Daniel, we'll presumably work this up and get some of these ideas up on onto the website at least. And you know, if people can, we have at least a mailing list for this group here. Which is, are we going to share that around?
Yeah, as long as
is everybody happy to share the contact list?
Yes.
And then if people can want to get in touch, I mean, I think if there are networks already there is, I know there's a few things with the public university happening. A couple of meetings recently at Sheffield about setting this up as well. So and I think that's about a cooperative university, and the idea of setting up a university as a cooperative, I think, would be something that would be super exciting, really interesting, and something that we could probably do with part-time work, that we could set this thing up just to get it going and see how that might work and experiment a little bit with it in an interesting space, as that higher education sector is really altering at the moment. So that would be something I'd be certainly very keen to work through with people that have got some experience of actually setting up businesses and dealing with things.
Might be worth talking to the Cooperative School Network, because they've set schools up. So there may be some issues around how you get your funding and how they've dealt with it through local authorities.
Yeah, that would be useful.
Who actually will be your members.
It's a Cooperative School Society, isn't it? SCS.
I suppose there's an issue about workplace democracy, which is broader than just cooperatives. And I mean, 2 things come to mind. Firstly, when you get into my age, you sort of start noticing things that haven't happened in your life. You know, when I first started off, everyone said organisations were going to get slimmer and more flexible and stuff like this. And we've got these monster bureaucracies everywhere. You know, hospitals are massive bureaucracies, schools are massive bureaucracies, universities are massive bureaucracies. And the forms of the level, even institutions like universities, and I don't put this down to neoliberalism, I think it's more complex than that. Even institutions like universities that used to have quite active forms of democracy within them. You know, when I used to be at Loughborough University, you know, we had staff meetings and senate, and when I started off, they were quite active groups, and they increasingly became so I think there's got to be some way of putting cooperatives into a broader argument about having smaller, more participative type institutions.
And that's not universal either, though, is it? I mean, I work at a university in Switzerland as well. There's a visiting professor, and that's still run by the professoriate. They hold the rectorate to account very clearly, and the rectorate is a rotating position. It isn't. It is somebody who steps up from the professoriate to take that position for a period and steps down.
I got the feeling it's happening everywhere to some extent. I mean, I remember being